Kenny, he just got outside and announced it when he was right there. She said, "Where'd this one come from?" 5 minutes ago. Oh, y'all got
Are you gonna work? Huh? Energetic looking crowd.
This is actually a very short stop. The main reason we stop here is to introduce your tour guide. My name is Pete Logan. I do have 14 years underground service in the mine. This mine was originally owned by the Phillips family. They mined coal in here from 1890 to 1910 for 20 years. Just the man and his 6 sons worked from this mine. City of Beckley bought this mine off a remaining Phillips family member in 1960 for the large sum of $1. We came in here at continuous miner, cut the top and the walls, which we call ribs, for the height and width we have today. We also put today's conventional roof bolt with header boards to secure the top better and crib blocks at every intersection. As you notice, there's a lot of water dripping from the top. All mines in the state of West Virginia have water in them. Mainly because we stand on the mountains, and these old mountains hold a lot of water. It has to come out somewhere. In the early days of mining, the easiest way to get rid of it is dig a ditch from your work area to the outside to drain it out. This is the very first pump we came out with for underground use. It's known as a Mr. Armstrong. The reason they call him Mr. Armstrong, all the arm you had to pump the water. Now if you were at the ripe old age of 14, this is the first job you had underground. For 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, you pumped water. You made big money. You made a nickel a week. This is the very first electric pump invented for underground use. The year was 1910. It was made by Gaither Company. They pumped about the same amount of water as Mr. Armstrong. The larger pump you see sitting beside it is today's pump we use underground. It runs off of DC power, not AC power, which you use in your home. It's a piston type pump. It's a continuous pump. At the next stop just above us, you will see an original 1888 one-ton coal car. This mine is known as a drift mouth mine. That means it goes uphill and downhill all the way through it. The reason we made drift mouth mines in the early days is because we didn't have electricity. We didn't have big exhaust fans on the outside to blow fresh air through the mine. So if you made a drift mouth mines, the air will flow evenly through it and the men would be able to breathe. Like I said, at the next stop, there's an original 1888 one-ton coal car, which the men used in the early days to take their coal in and out of the mountain with. Average man cannot push or pull a one-ton coal car full of coal in and out of a drift mouth mines by himself. So in the early days, we did use animals. Now, it all depends what the height of your coal was, which animal you used. Here in the state of West Virginia, we used oxen, mules, donkeys, ponies, and Shetland ponies, and dogs. The animals stay underground 365 days a year. The only time they went outside was 2 to 3 trips a day to unload that 1-ton car. When the animals were not in use, they were in their stalls underground in the pitch dark blackness. After approximately 3 months underground, the animals do go blind because of the dark. To give you an idea how dark it is underground, at the next stop, we'll turn the lights off. And believe me, it is so dark underground, you can try it for yourself. You can hold your hand in front of your face and you will not be able to see any part of it. Another reason we stop here is to make sure that everybody is comfortable. Nobody has claustrophobia or scared. If you are, let me know at any time and I will back you out and refund your money without any questions. So how's everybody doing so far? Right now, you're 55 feet underground. Last stop, you'll be 170 feet. Not bad. Of course, I could have lied to you and told you we're going to be 1,000 feet, but can't take that deep. Federal law says the deepest we can take you is 720 feet safely. But we'd have to put a lot of work in here to get that deep. So everybody feels pretty comfortable?
Have you ever been that deep?
Yes, ma'am. Where I worked, last company in the River Coal Company, we rode an elevator 1,200 feet underground. And we got on a man trip and rode up to the work area. When we finished going down, we were 3,100 feet underground. Not too bad. It's a lot warmer, because you know what's below you. What do you think coal grows underground for? Now, if you ever decide to come back and take another ride with us, and you ride with some of the old tour guys, they love to kid you. And say they do charge you to back you up to the next stop, but don't believe them. They're just joking with you. What we do, we turn the lights out and let you walk out. We have more fun anyway. Does anybody have any questions about this short stop?
Well, this was the thickness of that coal there.
No, sir. The coal seam, if you look here at the bottom, the black area, this is the natural coal seam in this mountain. On this side and even on the back side of it. The actual height of this coal is only 33 inches. The Phillips family, when they took on this mine, they took the 33-inch seam of coal plus 1.5 feet of rock above it. The height of this mine was only about 4 to 4.5 feet in height. It was only 5 foot wide. Crawl. That's why a lot of old timers, you'll see them if they were miners, they're bent. They got knots on their back, big humps, and they're not just bent at their backs, they're bent at their knees. They can't straighten their knees all the way.
Well, you're pretty tall.
Well, I worked in 4.5 foot height of coal. Of course, with the machinery today we have today. Yeah. Most of the machinery we have today is so big underground, you have to get a lot of rock. Of course, we also found out the deeper we went, the higher the coal seams were. The highest area we have here in the state of West Virginia is 26 foot in height. You don't have to worry about the top falling on you. You have to worry about the walls blowing in on you.
Ever have that happen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one reason I got out of the mines. Last year I worked, the buddy was working beside me. We were floating on top. We had a double head fletcher. He was working his side, and I was working my side. I turned around to get a bolt, and a piece of rock fell down on him and crushed him to death. That's why I left. Any more questions? Of course, we take good care of this top. We don't let it fall. Especially on Friday. Today's payday. Well, is everybody ready to go to the next stop, Plain and Dark in? Just remember, when I turn the lights off, you bought your ticket now. Now, at this stop, we're going to be talking about from 1850 up until 1919. Now, in the early days, when you went to work for a coal company, mainly the only thing they would furnish you with was a place to work. A 1-ton coal car, wooden timbers, and wooden tracks. You had to lay all of your own tracks from the opening to your work area. The next man would connect on here and go to his work area. In some of the mines, the closest man to you could be 1/4 of a mile away. No two men worked in the same cut together in the early days. Mainly because companies figured if you put two men together, they talk too much and complain, and less coal they dug, which was true. Take an average miner 2 to 4 hours to fill this 1-ton car by himself. He also had to buy all of his own hand tools, his pick, his shovel, his drill bit, and his blasting powder. Now the noise you're getting ready to hear is another man trip just like this making us run through the mountain with some more visitors. Believe me, it's not the top falling, it makes an entirely different sound. Not that much noise anyway. Like I said, it would take an average miner 2 to 4 hours to fill this 1-ton car by itself. He had to buy all of his own hand tools, his pick, his shovel, his drill bit, and his blasting powder. When he first came in, he would dig underneath his coal seam, usually 2 to 3 foot in depth, the whole width would be seamed, shovel it into his car, then push his car down around the curve. Then he would drill 3 holes into his coal, 1 in each corner, 1 through the center, 5 foot in depth. Now in the early days, we didn't have dynamite, so you had to buy black powder and fuses off the company. So you need something to put it in, so you get on a Sears Roebuck catalog, some type of paper, tear a page, make a funnel. Twist the bottom end tight, put a 5-foot fuse in it, fill a full black powder, twist it tight, put 1 in each hole. Take mud off the floor, lumps of coal, shove it back on your plastic powder, tamp it up real tight, take your open flame light, light all 3 fuses, and take off running. You never stood in the area blasted, maybe because it vibrated over a mountain above you and some rock would fall. Plus, when the blast went off, the coal dust was so thick in the air you could not see or breathe for a few minutes. After it settled down, you come back in and set the timbers on each side, pushed your car into the hole, filled full of coal. When you thought you had enough, you went and got your animals, hooked it onto your sled, and took it outside. Now, in the early days, we had no way of weighing coal, so we measured coal. So when you went outside, there was a man known as a checker. And he would pull your board off your car, which has a little tag number on it, and he'd write your tag number down on a chalkboard to identify whose ton of coal he's checking. Then he would tell you to pull your car forward, and there would be a board hanging across, and if your coal grazed the bottom of the board as it went under, he said you had a ton car. And for 2 to 4 hours work, that man said you made 20 cents. That was a pay up until 1990. One other thing you had to buy off companies in the days was called a bird in a cage, a canary. The reason for canary, there's gas underground that comes out of coal when you cut it. The same type of gas you use in your home today to heat your house with. The only difference is when a gas company pumps it into your home, they mix a chemical in with it, which gives it an odor. And that's how you determine if you have a leak in your home. Underground, there is no smell to natural gas. Put food and water in a cage with a bird, brought to work with you, set it at the very first timber in the area you're working. Now while you're on your hands and knees digging coal, you visually check on the bird to make sure he's still chirping in play. If you ever look back and seen the bird on his back with his feet in the air, the bird was dead. And if you didn't move on, you're going to end up the same way. The reason we use canaries in the early days, canary is the only bird that has lungs. Similar to human beings, they're just smaller. Doesn't take much gas to kill them. A few more ounces concentrated in their gas would kill human beings. So they were used as an early warning device for the mine. Up until 1919, the average cost of the bird in the cage was $5. This is one of the very first lights we used underground. It's known as an open flame light. It's called a tea kettle light. Not very big. Might remind you of a toy you might have had at one time or still do. Use coal oil for fuel, cotton as a wick. Now even in the early days, coal oil was mighty high, because everybody had to buy to put in their lanterns for lights in their home. This light will burn for 1 hour. Average miner worked a 16-hour day. So he had to bring extra coal oil with him to work and refill his light. When he fill it, light it, hold it to the top, pull all the loose rock down so it wouldn't fall on him while he was mining coal. Now because you mine coal so slowly in the early days, the gas would seep out and eventually float to the top. Usually we gather in pockets about the size of your hand and hide under the cracks and crevices of the rock. The miners in the early days thought the easiest way to get rid of it was take their open flame light to the top and ignite the small pockets of gas. Hopefully there was never a large accumulation at the top, because the bear held to the top and caused an explosion, which took their life. These lights worked fine until the turn of the century in 1900. Then we come out with another light known today as a carbide light. Change the fuel in it. Carbide was originally found out west by a farmer. He was plowing his property. He overturned a rock and it fell in some water. He heard a hissing noise behind him. He thought it was a snake. But when he turned around to look, it was the rock. It was putting off a smoke and a gas burn. He was kind of curious. He didn't know what it was. So he hollered at his sons. His sons came over and looked at it. His dad poured some water on it. Sure enough, the rock did smoke and hiss. And gas came from it. His older son said, well, Dad, I wonder if it'll burn then. So he struck a match and threw it on it, and the rock caught on fire. When we heard about it here in the mining business, we knew we could make a light out of it. And this is what carbide looks like and smells like today.
That's carbide. Front lights just for electricity.
It stinks. I don't know if I'm getting y'all or not.
So we made a little container. You put the carbide in the bottom, put water in the top, have a striker or flint on the front of it. And when you add the water to it, the gas forms. Now, screw it all together. Let the gas build up, then strike it. And you have an open flame light. This light will burn 4 to 6 hours on just that little bit in the bottom. The lights were $2 a piece, and you could buy the carbide off the company in the early days for 3 cents per 50-pound rock. Miners used to see with, light their explosive powder, and burn the pockets of gas out. Around 1908, the miners started complaining to the companies about all the work they had to do. The company said, we'll make your job easier. We'll hire a man and pay him $5 a day. He'll be the highest paid miner in the world. We'll call him a fire boss, and he'll come to work 4 hours before the mouse does, and he'll burn all the gas out of the mines for you. So you can just come on in and start digging coal. Well, in the early days, some dummy took the job. Easiest way to determine who the fire boss was worked for that company in the early days, when you were outside, look for the man that had no facial hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes. He was the fire boss, because when he ignited the gas, it always was back on and burning. Excuse me. The life expectancy of a fire boss in the early days was 2 weeks. Mainly because we worked 6 days a week. We didn't work on Sunday. So they give him minus 24 hours to fill up full of gas. So if he came to work at 4 o'clock Monday morning, instead of small accumulations on the top, there was a large accumulation. When he struck his lamp, it held to the top to burn the gas out, causing an explosion which took his life. This is an average flame that a miner used in the early days to see with, wearing it on his head, but not these type of hard hats, similar to what we call baseball caps, railroad caps, or hats made out of cow leather. After it dries, sewed together, it makes a pretty stiff hat. And this is what it looks like. It's not a lot of light, is it? But at least it's something. In a minute, you're going to see nothing. Just imagine if you were underground for 4 hours digging coal, filled this car, took it outside and emptied it, came back underground, started working coal for another 2 hours, got to feed your light. Now you got to take it all apart, put a new carbide in the bottom, put water in the top, let it drip, screw it together, cover the front, let it build up, and strike it, all in the dark. Will you turn your camera off for a minute? Everybody still feel pretty comfortable? You're 110 feet underground right now. Now, since you get a picture in the dark, we'll show her what it looks like in the dark. Nice place, isn't it? Nice place to sleep. As long as the rats don't bite.
Okay, you can cut them back on there.
Low top, watch your head.
Get that in here a little bit.
You better keep your eye on the top of your roof. What do you think?
Jobs easier, safer, and you're going to furnish us with all the equipment we need to cut the coal. And if you don't like it, you can find somebody else to dig your coal. We'll come and say, we'll just find somebody else to dig your coal. So they tried to bring in a lot of immigrant workers in to dig the coal. They weren't experienced, they didn't know what they were doing, so a lot of men lost their lives. A lot of mines exploded, a lot of companies had to fold up. Not very much coal was being produced. So finally the companies agreed to sign a contract with the United Mine Workers Union. And the first thing they agreed to sign, every man would make 38 cents a ton. Every man would be assigned a certain job to do underground. Every man would work a 10-hour day, 6 days a week, and the company would furnish you with all the equipment you need to cut the coal. The very first piece of equipment they gave us that was electric was called a Goodman cutting machine. The 4-piece equipment here in the back. 2 men operated it. They set 2 steel jacks up, one on each corner, wrapped a steel cable around each one, hooked it on a reel machine. Turn the machine on, and the blade would start cutting in a circular motion. Cables would tighten up and pull the machine forward, and it would cut 6 to 8 foot in depth of coal. We also figured out if you loosen the cable on the right, tighten one on the left, it would cause the machine to swing and do a side cut. Listen, one on the left, tighten one on the right, we'll swing back another way and do another side cut. We could drop anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 tons of coal in about 2 hours. So we started moving coal a lot faster. Around 1935, we signed a new contract with the companies, and the companies agreed to pay every man $22.50 a day to dig coal. Every man was still assigned a certain job. Every man would work a 10-hour day still yet, but he only worked 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. But the companies had a lot of coal orders to fill, because of 1935, the whole United States depended on coal. Your power plants, your auto plants, your steel mills, all the factories, even your homes and your local stores needed coal. So we had to figure out a faster way to cut the coal. We had a piece of machinery at the top speed. It still took 2 hours to cut it. So we figured out, instead of each cut being 1/4 of a mile away, if we would make each cut anywhere from 100 to 120 feet apart, we could cut 10 times the amount of coal we used to cut. We were cutting so much coal in the early days of 1935, it was piling up on us underground. The animals couldn't keep up with it, hauling up 1 and 2 ton cars in and out of the mine so fast. Animals were dying from exhaustion. So the companies got together with a man called J.T. Fisher in June of 1935, and he came out with a piece of equipment to help us get the coal out from underground a little faster. It's an original 1935 5-ton motor, which I'm pushing you through the mines with today. The cars you're riding on are the original 1935 3.5-ton coal cars that we came out with. The only modifications we did to them when we got them, we cut the centers out, put the benches in, and cut the handrails out. That's the only modifications we did to them. We didn't even put shocks on them. That's where you get the old bumpy ride all the way through the mine. On an average day, every 10 hours per working section of the mines, we were cutting anywhere from 70 to 90 tons of coal. That's a lot of coal in the early days, but we kept the country going. Around 1940, the companies came to us and said, well, we got ways to cut the coal, ways to get it out from underground, we're meeting all of our contracts, but we're still losing money. Because we have to buy all this timber property around the mountains, and after we cut the trees down, we can't resell the property. It has no value. The rain's washed the topsoil away and the land's worthless, and we're stuck with it. So let's figure out a better way to hold the top up. So in 1940, the companies got together with another company called Jeffries. And they came out with a piece of equipment to help us hold the top up. It's called a Jeffries roof bolting machine. It works the same way a drill does that you have at your own home. The only difference is it's fully electric, it's on rubber tires, it's bigger, and you can tram it or drive it. You tram it up to the section, lower the floor jack, you put a 4-foot piece of steel in it with a diamond tip bit on the top. Turn the machine on, the head will start rotating. Pull the other knob and the head will slowly raise. And it will drill a 4-foot hole into the top. We also came out with what we call a 4-foot conventional bolt with a chuck on the end of it. The reason for the chuck in this great big old world of ours, there is no such thing called a solid rock. No matter how smooth the rock is, take a hammer and bust it open, and you will see how that rock is formed. All rocks are formed in layers just like these. Today, because the equipment we use underground is so big, your average entry, what you're riding on now, can be anywhere from 25 to 50 to 100 feet wide. Federal and state law says we can place these bolts 4 foot across from each other, 4 foot in width of each other. That's the furthest distance apart they can be. So after you drill your hole 4 foot in the top, you remove your steel, slide your bolt into the hole until the blade touches the top. Put a wrench on the bottom of the bolt, wrench on the machine, and tighten it up. As you tighten it up, the chuck will open up and expand and bind the layers of rock together. If these bolts are placed properly, 4 foot across, 4 foot in width of each other, they're guaranteed to hold 25,000 tons of rock together. Since 1960, that's what's been holding the top above your head. And you are 170 feet underground right now. They do work. Hopefully. Has everybody heard of what we call black lung? What black lung is just coal dust. In the early days, when the men cut the coal or blasted coal, and black dust floated around, the men swallow it. It goes into the lungs. After years, it builds up so thick in the lungs, the men actually suffocate to death because of the lack of oxygen through the system. In 1960, we thought we figured out a way to calm coal dust down the mine. The white powder you see on the walls, roof above your head, is known to most miners as rock dust. What rock dust is, it's grind up limestone rock into a fine powder, just like flour you have at home. We come out with a rock dust machine, 450-pound bag in it, has 4-foot hose, and you spray it everywhere underground, the roofs, the walls, the floor, the mine. It's a white, pretty, looks like Christmas year-round underground, like the snow. I'm finding out if coal dust was floating by, the rock dust would suck it out of the air just like a magnet. We thought it worked fine. Till 69, men were still dying at an early age. Miner died, they cut him open and opened his lungs, see how much coal dust he'd eaten all his life. When he opened his lungs, the bottom part of his lungs was full of coal dust. The upper part of his respiratory lung was full of white powder, the limestone rock. It did the same thing as coal dust did. So in 1960, we actually invented a new disease for the miners, known today as silicosis. Today, we still use rock dust underground, mainly to control fires, when wet areas to help absorb the water. Next thing we came out with was an oxygen mask for your wear. The yellow one here, with a battery pack on it, will produce fresh oxygen for you for about 10 hours. The only trouble is it weighs 12 to 15 pounds when fully assembled. We also came out with what we call pocket mask, painter's mask, ones you can change the filters in. It all depends how thick the coal dust is in here working. Plus, in 1974, Lee Norris Manufacturing Company came out with a piece of machinery called a 265 hardhead continuous miner. This piece of machinery is 25 feet long, 15 feet wide. With big ripper heads on the front, it takes 15 seconds to cut 20 tons of coal with it. As the ripper heads are turning and cutting coal, we put water jets on the ripper head, and we spray coal with water as we cut it, so there is less dust and less chance of the coal catching on fire. Also in 1970, we changed our ventilation system to an exhaust fan. On the outside, we have a big old fan. I mean, this fan is humongous. On low speed, you can pull a Greyhound bus in front of it, load it down with passengers, and turn it on, and it'll blow the bus over. But we have plenty of fresh air blowing underground nowadays, so we take very good care of the dust. Now we're getting to one of the favorite things at my stop I love to show people. It's the most dangerous thing underground today. Ones on the back of the car will have to stand up to see it. I'm going to put my light on it. Looks like a big old dark rock here, this one. This one right here. And there's a lighter colored one here on the back side. They're not rocks. They're called kettle bottoms. What kettle bottoms are, they're petrified wood stumps from billions of years ago. Everybody can see it? Okay, it's this one right here. Then the lighter colored one right here. Like I said, they're not rocks. They're called kettle bottoms. But what they are, they're petrified wood stumps from billions of years ago. They are so solid, we have never invented a drill bit yet that could drill a hole through them. They usually hang 2 to 3 inches off the top. The only part you'll usually see is about the size of your fist, kind of glassy looking. No rock bonds with it. Rock will grow around it to conceal it and hide it. In the mines today, we can put steel beams under them, steel jacks under them. Believe me, when they decide to fall, they will bend or break whatever's underneath them will come out. They can be this size or 10 times that size. The heaviest one recorded that we know of that was found in a mine was found in 1988 in Pennsylvania mines. It's sitting now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in a museum. It is 4 feet 9 inches long by 3 feet 5 inches wide. It weighs 11,000 pounds. The whites of the miners in their days refused to call them kettle bottoms. They had another name for them. They called them widow makers. A lot of miners were crushed to death by it. But we broke the bond with this one. If we would have left it alone, left it hanging in the top, no direct air hitting it, in about another 10,000 years it would have mixed into the coal. And it would have changed forms. And do you know what it became? A diamond. Been a nice sized diamond too. I imagine my ex-wife can carry it. This is one of the very first all-metal dinner buckets that ever came out. The very first one came out in 1900. It's called a half-a-gallon bucket. The reason it's called a half-gallon bucket, holds a half-gallon of water. You cannot drink the water that comes out of the top. There's sulfur and other chemicals in there. Once you upset your system, make you sick. Now remember, until 1919, you worked a 16-hour day, so you had to bring something to drink and something to eat with you. But you never took your dinner bucket up into the work area where you're cutting coal. Mainly because if you're cutting coal, a piece of rock or coal or slate would fall on it, and you'd lose your water and your lungs. So you always set it out here on the main entry. But the only trouble, say if you were around a corner cutting coal, some man just went outside and emptied his 1 or 2 ton car, And he just walked a quarter of a mile away, a quarter of a mile back into the mines, had another quarter of a mile to go back to his work area. If he was thirsty, he'd stop and drink your water. And you'd never catch him. So the old timers had to figure out a way to keep him out of the bucket. It still works today. The easiest way in the world to do it is just put your teeth down in it. Oh, it works. These buckets are really nice. It has a very large dinner plate. It'll hold 5 or 6 sandwiches, a lot of soup, and 1 whole chicken. Remember, you work a 16-hour day, whatever you need to keep you going. Also, in the other days, you couldn't go to the store and buy these little Debbie's cakes they sell everywhere. So if your wife or your mother cared a lot about you the night before, she'd make a homemade cake or pie, so they furnished you with a pie pan. You always had something sweet to eat. Made it pretty nice. In the other days, when these buckets first came out, you could buy them for about a quarter to 50 cents. Today, about $35 to $40, wherever you buy them. All identical bucket, everything's included, just like I showed you, except you got to furnish your own teeth. But most of you mines, every 8 hours, they bring in mountain spring water by the caseload of it for you. So you always have something to drink. New River Coal Company, who I worked for last, if you got on the nice section, which was the mine superintendent's son's section, he had a microwave underground. It sat by the transformer and a coffee pot machine. It made it pretty nice. So a lot of things have changed underground. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I hope you've enjoyed yourself and learned a little bit about mining in the early days. Our next little ride to warm you up, I'll take you for a ride around the park and see the pool and the water slide, which is open. When we reach the top of the hill, please look back on top of the mountain. You will actually see how much dirt, rock, and trees were above you. Just remember a couple things. My name is Pete Logan. It's been my pleasure to have you with me for this short time, and you are 170 feet underground. And you bought your ticket. I'm just your guide.
Just came out of that.
Somewhere around the mountain. Nobody owns it.
It's about 1,700 feet. What are you looking at?
We're getting ready to go down the steps. Everybody's nice and relaxed, no sweat. Ready to go down, guys?
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay. Grant, turn around. We decided it's not that bad. We're waiting on Mama. What do you see down there, Grant?
Seen that duck? That's not fast. Can you do that all the way back up when we get down there, Grant?
How far down is it, Justin?
Now, I need to take, to get to the bottom, you have to take the road.
Uh-huh.
God.
We just done all this walking for nothing.
See, that's right.
All this walking just for nothing.
That paper in there a while ago said that it used to take 45 minutes to go from that side over to this side. Now it takes 45 seconds.
You gotta take that road down here. Go away from the cars right there. Where's Carl?
On the other side of it.
And what are we doing, Cap?
I think I just got a fish jumping up right there. I had the camera like this. Oh, okay. Might have been. I don't know, when we watched the film, we'll see. Up there is where we were.
Hey, next ball, we're gonna watch this guy do it again.
When you get up yonder on that walking bridge, you can really see. It is over on the other bridge, you can see everybody. Have your own look to do.
Right up.
That'd be fun.
Holler from the way here.
Don't you do He will. He didn't either. He's going backwards. Now he's hung.
And that's good. Hey, look. Well, that's like a mountain. Mama, it's like a mountain.
Grant, it's not good enough. It's not right.
Wait, Mom, let's go back to that gate. Take that look. Whoa. Looks like a mountain right there.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, who said it's no good?
Is that what that is over there?
Let me get in.
They're all dirty.
Whoa, whoa, look.
You didn't get Grant.
Is it cold? It is cold.
I doubt it. You can try it. Can't keep those boys still long enough to get them together. It's pretty water behind it. Isn't it Grant's little mouth down there?
Where, in the water?
Yeah, everybody stay in the water and I'll stand on the bank.
Justin, get your head out of the way. Rafters. And here's the bridge. Yeah. I don't believe it would take if I turned it into the sunset, but we'll see.
Outside. Dive. That dude was in that boat while ago. Look at his boat up there, boy.
Huh? What?
See them right there chasing that boat?
Another one here.
Oh, there he is. Right there in the water.
Here's the fella that lost his boat. Well, he's not trying to get his boat. Why don't he try? Way up here is where we were.
I bet that. All right?
Yeah.
Which one got you? Big hole?
Huh?
Which one got you?
I don't know.